In 2008, the U.S. experienced one of the worst economic disasters in modern history, thus triggering the Great Recession. But what was one of the key factors that played an indirect role in creating this catastrophic event? That question we'll dive deeper into during this episode. This graph shows us the income inequality in the U.S. from 1910 to 2010. We can see on the eve of the 2008 financial crisis that the wealthiest top 10%, including capital gains and income, had a 50% share of national income. Now, all of this data is derived from income tax reports, so if we are accounting for income tax that was not stated, such as dividends that they maybe fell under the radar and never got taxed, then the share of the top 10% in total income and capital gains would fully exceed 50%, which is a huge income inequality that the United States was facing in the eve of the 2008 financial crisis. We can say that all these capital gains that were not reported on their income tax report would then boost their share of national income to around 60%. This is a huge gap between the wealthiest top 10% and the bottom 90%, which would include the middle to lower class households. This graph shows us the percent of combined U.S. households' income held by each tier from 1970 to 2014. We can use this graph to roughly see the purchasing power of the middle income, upper income, and lower income tiers. From 2000 to 2008, we can see that the middle income purchasing power, or overall income percentage, actually decreased from 47 to 45 from 2000 to 2010. You can also see that the lower income percentage fell stagnant. If we correlate this to purchasing power, we can see that the middle income purchasing power actually decreased, and we can see that the lower income purchasing power fell stagnant while the upper income purchasing power actually increased. This decrease in stagnation of purchasing power is roughly in part due to what I showed in graph 1. With the stagnated and decreasing purchasing power that the lower income and middle income brackets had, this caused them to have to take on debt, and in the case of the financial crisis, they had to take on very, very risky mortgages, as many of these individuals had very bad credit scores. Banks and other financial institutions faced very weak regulations leading up to the 2008 financial crisis. Banks loosened their lending practices, offering subprime mortgages, like I just stated, to borrowers with poor credit and often with little income verification. So they were completely fine with giving these borrowers very, very risky mortgages, as they would most likely profit from this. Banks then brought these subprime mortgages to Wall Street, where they would bundle these mortgages into a mortgage-backed security and more complex products called collateralized debt obligations. So investors worldwide bought these because credit rating agencies often gave them AA ratings, the safest rating, even though many were full of risky loans. So investors would then get a part of that monthly mortgage payment. This graph shows us the average sales price of houses sold for the United States. We can see in the eve of 2008, or from 2000 to 2008, housing prices increased considerably, reaching its peak of a average sales price at $322,000. And then the bubble burst and housing prices decreased considerably. Once housing prices stopped rising, many homeowners couldn't afford their adjustable rate mortgage payments once rates reset higher. Foreclosures surged and the value of these mortgage-backed securities collapsed. This chart shows us the S&P 500 during the collapse of the 2008 financial crisis. On October 7th in 2007, it was at its high of $1,576. Then in March 6th in 2009, it reached its final low of $667.29. This was 2 years of an extreme bear market that the S&P 500 and the overall market faced due to the huge collapse in these mortgage-backed securities. This all comes back to the income inequality that the U.S. was facing on the eve of the 2008 financial crisis, and the low and stagnated purchasing power that lower and middle income households faced. It's important to note that this is all just an idea, but many economists do back the indirect role that capital and income inequality had on the 2008 financial crisis. This video is all in part due to all of the research I got from the book Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty. If you're interested in this topic, I would definitely make sure to give that a read. It's a very interesting book. Unfortunately, it is said in the book that income inequality is going to continue to rise, and it is going to be an everlasting concern that the U.S. and other countries will face. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and thank you guys for watching.